How we doing, everyone? Hope everyone is well and trading safe. Now this video is going to be a really quick video. It's just a quick tips video, right? So it's about studying the pullback, right? Now, as we know, price moves in impulses and corrections. Yeah, so this is going to be focusing on the corrective aspect of it. Yeah, so understanding the pullback, right, can help us to identify if there's cause, right, being formed, being generated. So if there's liquidity being generated to target, etc. Yeah, so it's really important for me, my trading, understanding the pullback. Right, now it's completely up to you guys how in depth you look into this and how, if you use it at all, right? But I'm just going to show you this because it's part of my trading and something I look out for on a day-to-day basis, right? So let's get into it. We all know that once price break structure, right? Once price break structure, yeah. So this is your swing low, which is broken, and the swing high was created. Once this break structure, we expect a pullback. Yeah, and now on diagrams, this is what we see usually, right? This is usually what we see: low lows and low highs, high highs and high lows. Now, what we ideally want to see is one of two things, right? This is what we call like a circular sort of pullback, right? So it's sort of circular motion here, and what's happening here, right, is this demand chain is essentially holding, right? But this is now creating liquidity for price to target in the future, right? So that's one of the ways that we can identify this pullback as being a solid pullback, and we can look to target these calls here, right? The next one, very similar, right? Essentially, that's the same thing. So again, we've broken structure, right? What we want to see is sort of like a corrective, right? Literally a corrective pullback. Right, so again, what this is doing here is building trendline liquidity, right, to target for the future, right? Again, demand chain holding. Why, right? So you guys need to get used to asking yourself why, right? Why did that demand chain hold? Why did that supply chain hold? Why did price do this, right? And once you dig deep into the whys, you're going to improve your trading, right? You're going to start to understand the characteristics, what price is doing, why price is doing it, right? In a lot more detail, right? Now, what I don't want to see, right? What I don't want to see is our typical diagram, right? Which is, clicking on everything here. Once we break structure, right? I don't want to see an impulse, right? So I don't want to see an impulse, right? I want to see impulse, correction. Impulse, correction. Right? Now, essentially, these two are the same thing, right? It's showing us the same thing. It's just different ways of seeing it. That's all, right? That's up to you guys to see it in however way you want to see it, right? But what I'm trying to say is, we don't want to trade off of impulses. We want to trade off of impulse corrections. Yeah? So let's now go and take a look at a few examples, right, illustrating these three diagrams. So guys, here's the first example. So what we don't want to see is, once price break structure, we don't want to see an impulse, right? We don't want to see that. Yeah. So in this example here, you might have this low, and this high was created. Why is it a high? Well, it went on to break market structure. Perfect. Now you might have a POI here or a POI here, whatever it is, right? I'm not bothered, right? If I just play price out here, what we can see is an impulse, right? It's an impulse. We don't want to see that, right? There's not sufficient cause being created for price to come lower, right? So that's why we don't really want to be trading off of these impulses, right? Because clearly at this point, this was a liquidity grab for price to go higher. Yeah. So now let's have a look at the second example, right? So once price break structure, we almost see that circular wave of price coming back in, right? Creating liquidity, right? Sufficient liquidity for price to come into somewhere in here and then to target, right? So this is one of the types of pullbacks that we want to see, right? So if you look here, you might have this high, created this low. Why is this a low? Broke market structure, right? Now, if I then play price out, what can we see? We can see this sort of supply chain starting to hold, right? We can sort of see the supply chain starting to hold now. Now, why is this holding, right? Why is this holding? Let me illustrate that a little bit better. So this sort of circular motion here, right? This is simply liquidity being generated for the future, right? So once price comes into some sort of POIs in here, or perhaps the extreme, it doesn't really matter. What we're expecting is for price to target this liquidity that's being built, right? So if I just play price out here, that's exactly what happens, right? We're targeting the weak high, right? We can clearly see sufficient liquidity being built here, right, to target, right? We've got clear cause to target once price comes into our regions that we're looking to take this pro trend move from, yeah? So guys, the last example, right, what we want to see, right, when price break structure, we want to see that correction. We want to literally just see that correction, right? That build up of trend line liquidity for then price to then target. Yeah. Now in this example here, you might have this low which broke structure, broke this high, and then let's just say we created this high. Now if I just play price out, initially we sort of had that impulse, right? Then just adapting to price, right? We can clearly see that corrective nature coming back in. So clearly at this point, we've now built sufficient liquidity here, right? Clear liquidity, clear cause to target. Now prices come into some sort of extreme here, it doesn't really matter, right? I'm not speaking about POI selection here. We've come into something in here and we've got clear cause to target, and ultimately our target would be these weak highs, right? We've got clear corrective nature in price here, right? So these are the types of pullbacks, right, that we want to see. So clearly, again, look at that perfect corrective nature in price to then target that trend line liquidity that's been built up, right? So if I just remove my drawing and play price out, you can clearly see price targeting that liquidity that was being built up and ultimately targeting the weak high. So guys, that's it for me today. As usual, if you've got any further questions, just let me know. I hope that quick little video was helpful. And if you guys do like the content on this page, give it a like, give it a share. If you've not already done so, subscribe to this channel.